Hey, Jen, we know the NBA playoffs are going on and the NFL is about to get going, which means you need MyBookie. MyBookie has up-to-the-minute odds on all your favorite teams. And with the start of the NFL season right around the corner, there's never been a better time to start playing. With MyBookie, it's easy. You bet, you win, they pay. They even got some odds going on in Major League Baseball right now. As a matter of fact, if you join today, MyBookie will match your deposit 100%, plus they'll toss you a free $10 MLB future wager. All you got to do is enter the promo code HoopBall when signing up. That's it. Remember, the terms are simple. Doesn't matter if it's Major League Baseball. Doesn't matter if it's the NBA playoffs. Doesn't matter if it's the NFL. MyBookie makes it easy. You bet, you win, they pay. And we are back after a week away. Damien Barling along with Jill Adge here on the Sacramento Kings podcast presented by Hoopball and the Hoopball Podcast Network. Jill, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Happy to see you. We took last week off for what I feel like are obvious reasons. I mean, could have gone on here and been silly about the Sacramento Kings and all of their dysfunction, but given what was going on, for those who don't know, we try to drop these podcasts on Wednesday. If you don't recall, it was Wednesday that the Milwaukee Bucks boycotted their game against the Orlando Magic, and then everything that followed, and it was time to step away from sports for a little while. So we are happy to be back here with you to discuss more King silliness, and be full disclosure, it's not like there's a ton of news to talk about. We had Jason Jones on with myself and Kenny Caraway over on ESPN 1320 today, and he's like, this is a long game. This is going to be a while. Like, there's not any breaking news here as it pertains to the Sacramento Kings GM search, but we will discuss some potential candidates today. But we'll start with this, Jill. As we're recording this, we're coming off the heels of that phenomenal series between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz in that incredible Game 7, and somehow Kings fans got caught in the crossfire. As that game came to its conclusion, the Denver Nuggets become the 12th team in the NBA to come back from a 3-1 deficit. But Sacramento Kings fans noticed a particular tweet from one Rudy Gay, who said, should have been the Kings. It's like, Rudy Gay is like the nicest guy in the league. So I was like, that sucks. He's right, but that's and then, wait a minute. There's DeMarcus. DeMarcus chimes in. Look it. Isaiah Thomas, 3 guys who averaged 20-plus points for the Sacramento Kings and managed to get us nowhere. That was an unexpected kick in the gut following a fantastic game.
Yeah. And it's actually kind of funny that he did that, because in the last couple of weeks, too, I had seen a couple different people put polls up there like, what do you think the biggest mistake has been, like, in the essentially since Vivek has taken over? Was it letting Malone go, or was it not drafting Luka? And it was interesting seeing the percentages there, because most people figure, well, if Malone's here, like a lot of these players, you assume that you're not even in the running for Luka. You're, well on your way and out of the playoff, dump as we've been. But it's kind of interesting looking at that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of been part of my issue that I've been saying as well, is why I want to get out of the whole advisor, like, let's keep doing these musical chairs, because those are the kind of moves that were made when that stuff was going on.
Right.
I mean, it was talking about having Mullen, come and be the coach. And then when that didn't happen, him and Mitch went and, started coaching in New York at St. John. So it was like, you just saw these things. And part of the reason why I wanted to get out of that whole, let's move the advisor over, and who's going to be in the ear next. And, but yeah, and Rudy's kind of gotten where a lot of fans have, given him credit, because he stayed professional through it all. And yeah, we have the, the Sacramento Hell comments, but I mean, it was, and he was kind of duped as you can get, where you traded for this guy to a small market where he never would have signed if he was a free agent. He finally started playing, really good basketball again. You were seeing it on the court between three guys averaging 20 plus points. They were winning. Your guy goes down with meningitis, and that's when it happens. But there were also, I'd mentioned this, I think, on the first show we did, where that was part of the time when Gentry had turned down the assistant lead position because he knew that was going to happen during the year. And the first chance it got, which was no fault to his own, it was, your star player at the time having, a medical injury, but they used any excuse they could. And it started the jazz band revolving door. But Rudy signed that extension, and it was within a couple of weeks, it was, we're going to drop kick everything that we had put together. And I think that's kind of the most frustrating thing too, is they actually put together a team and a coach, a staff, like they had it, and they blew it up for absolutely no reason. Like there was no legitimate basketball reason to blow it up besides egos going at it. Like there was it wasn't, an X and O's issue. And we haven't been able to recover since.
It's one of the,
so to see them talking about it, it was just, well, I had said, you're still taking L's in the playoffs that you're not even in. Like, I mean, it was, just another reminder for us, fans, like just,
lack of foresight from this organization over the years has been incredibly frustrating. Granted, being a fan of this organization, this team has been incredibly frustrating over the years, period. But when you start to piece different things together, like, oh, wow, like this coach would have been really good with this player, or this player would have been really good with this coach, and you start going through it, and it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike Malone, that was Vivek's first hire. Like that was all, after, yay, save the Kings, we're all happy. So I feel like for the Kings were like Vivek's new toy. And he's like, I want one of everything. Give me an assistant to this guy and an advisor to this guy. And then, give me the guy and then the assistant to the guy and the advisor to the guy. And then if you were in Golden State, come here. And if you've ever been anywhere that looks remotely good, come here, be with us. And I'm going to give you all jobs. I'm going to give you titles. It's like, this was a high stakes version of Entourage.
Yep.
Like I got Turtle, and then I got, all of these different people. I just, we've got it. We've got drama. We're building this crew here. And ultimately they don't do anything. Like it doesn't function together. They don't function as a unit. They function as an absolute mess. And it was so unexpected. It was like, man, what a series. Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell. Hey, Rudy Gay tweeted. Oh, Rudy Gay. Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't have to bring that up, but sure. Oh, look. Okay, there are the other two 20-point scores. And that's still the thing you go back and look at. Everybody like drools over, Dave Yeager's 40-something game, 50-something game stretch where they were playing decent basketball. But I still can't wrap my brain around the DeMarcus, Isaiah, like, how did that not work to a greater degree? Like, what were the other things that were going wrong that allowed that team to not be not just more successful? I think it's fair to ask, like, why wasn't it significantly more successful? I mean, you got 3 20-point scorers on your roster.
Yeah. Well, and you saw at the beginning of that season, the record, they were playing over 500 basketball. And then as soon as that went down, as soon as the firing went down, they were shocked. And then reading the articles afterwards, they were saying how it reminds how different mindset their basketball team was. And I'll go back to where we talked about before, the mindset that Shumpert had with this team, and how when he was gone, you could just see it's a different look on the face. And the swag was gone. Like, it was the same kind of thing where people talk about DeMarcus being a hothead and all that stuff, and that's fine, but he had no issues under Malone. Like, he was playing his best basketball, was not getting in trouble, like, which is what everybody said he always needed. And you finally gave that, and you pulled the rug out again. Like, it was just, and I think there was a lot of, bitterness there, and it just created, it started that toxic, environment. There was no trust. I mean, you had guys signing extension deals, sold, on a reality that was ended up not being in the picture a week later. Yeah. And it's sports, that can happen, but a week later, that's, you knew selling that it was BS at that point.
Right. Exactly. The thought to fire Mike Malone didn't enter your head the day you fired Mike Malone. And it was probably in their head the day that you were negotiating contract extensions and all of that. So,
or when they were talking about Gentry. I mean, it's like
right.
That we could hear that, not even on the team. Like, so I can only imagine the players would have heard similar things, and that that would have been a topic of discussion while he's signing the extension. And I'm sure it was, no, like, we're happy, like, we're good. Look at our record, like, we're great. And then meningitis hits.
We're fully functional now. Like, we're a normal basketball team. We are not dysfunctional anymore. Look, we've got new ownership. Yeah. Joe and Gavin are gone. New arena. All of this great stuff. We're good. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. Instead, we're going to get rid of Sharif. We're going to get rid of Malone. It was a whole, yeah.
And it's almost like, man, those were the good old days. Because at least we had, I don't know. They all kind of run together here at some point, and I guess.
Yeah, and you can see, so like we said, you can see so many similarities, with each new regime as it starts, and you start seeing that same cycle and again, and it's like, please jump off this Ferris wheel, get out of this cycle.
Well, that's how I felt when they traded DeMarcus. And it wasn't that they traded DeMarcus. It was that they secretly did it with New Orleans. It was just
yes. And you had teams like Boston come out and say, we would have offered more, but you told us a day or two before he was not available, which makes you think then Vivek had sway. And it was as soon as he heard Buddy, but that's why I want a GM who knows what they're doing and is doing it himself with no outside, factors. But you can't just take the first, trade that's offered then at that point.
But that's not the thing. We had
a better deal 2 days ago.
That's the thing, though. It wasn't even it wasn't the shop around. It wasn't even taking the trade that they targeted. Think about this now. Yeah. In hindsight, you go look at this DeMarcus's injuries. You can pick this apart however you want to. But the fact is, you had DeMarcus Cousins, who was an Olympian, and you targeted a sixth man. Your target was Buddy Heild. So you say, which is why the whole thing about trading DeMarcus Cousins has always made me laugh. The bullshit that the talking heads of this organization had spit for so long, headed by the people who work at that other radio station, have always, or a particular guy who used to work at the radio station, always made me laugh. This is Vlade's first big move as the general manager. It is now his team. Kiss my ass. You didn't trade DeMarcus Cousins without Vivek Ranadive telling you to trade DeMarcus Cousins. You went to Mark Stein. You confirmed a James Ham report. You told any and everybody who would listen, we are keeping DeMarcus Cousins. Danny Ainge is I've been trying to get a hold of this team for a month. All of a sudden, they send him to New Orleans for Buddy Heild?
Yep.
I'm Danny freaking Ainge. Do you know how many draft picks I got? I could have sewn up your draft for the next 3 years to get DeMarcus Cousins, but we can't get a hold of your general manager. I always loved the narrative that this was Vlade's first big move when it clearly was not his move at all. It was Vivek Ranadive saying, get DeMarcus out of here for whatever reason, whether it was the middle finger to someone in LA or I remember a middle. Was it here?
He said F the Warriors or whatever when he was walking off.
Yes, because no one has ever said F the Warriors.
I know.
No one's ever said that. But I love that. I love that whole thing. We got rid of him. I'm just picturing Vivek in a room Go get me Buddy Heild. That's who I want. Like, oh my God. So bad. Why? Like, why? Why can't we have something fun? Why can't we have the Utah Jazz? I never thought I would ever say that. Why can't we have a team like the Utah Jazz? Just scrappy, nothing but heart, going out there playing for Quinn Snyder, whose hair looks one way at the beginning of a game, looks completely different by the end of it. Yep. Or, guys like Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and coming back from a 3-1 deficit. I don't know.
True. And then there was even, I think that someone was saying too, when this got brought up again, like, oh yeah, Denver was floating Murray too at the time. Like, I mean, there's just so like, because people always figured when they got DeMarcus out, they would utilize that Olympian talent. And granted, the Pelicans did prior to him going down. They were playing great, and they were ready to sign that extension prior to him going down. So, it was just, a horrible case of luck there. But, I mean, score-wise, it was working.
He was playing the best basketball possibly of his career when he went down. I remember it against Houston. They were balling. The Pelicans were playing great ball. And this one, Houston was really, really good at the time. This was a big win for New Orleans, and it was there at the end of that game. DeMarcus going for a ball out of bounds. That was it. It.
But, and had that not have happened, even the narrative they tried to spin would have been completely, if they would have been able to stay with Drew and Davis and Cousins as their three. Because people tried to sell, it worked in Sacramento's favor because of the injury. Well, yeah, because of the injury. I mean, had that not have happened, I think you wouldn't have been able to spin like you could spin. Right,
which is fantastic because we always try to find winners and losers in deals, right? Well, this person won. Well, it's obvious because the Kings, they obviously won this deal because DeMarcus has been hurt and you've gotten all of this out of Buddy Heild. I want to remind you, one, you've got nothing but salary cap hell out of Buddy Heild. And now this will segue us nicely into our next topic where we're probably talking about trading Buddy Heild this offseason. So I have a theory that might be foreign to some sports fans. There is a possibility that both teams lost the trade. Like nobody got anything out of it. Not the Pelicans, not the Kings, and everybody just has to walk away like, oh.
Yeah. Buddy got paid. That's about it.
Yeah.
he's the one winner.
Buddy won the deal. DeMarcus is the biggest loser of all because of the amount of money that he lost in the whole transaction. But sure, Buddy wins. He's got the deal, and I'll throw this question out to you. It's been a topic of conversation at least over the last couple of weeks, at least since the Kings bubble season ended. You think he's wearing a Kings uniform next year?
See, and that's where I think so much of it depends on who comes in and what the control really is. And this was brought up yesterday. I think, people have been putting out the trade scenarios and, I get it just because last season ended up being, the shit show that it ended up turning out to be. Between injuries and egos and everything else. If it's truly not salvageable, okay, but I don't make the move just to make the move because a player got butthurt last season. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but his skill set I still think is coveted, in this league and how it is. And if it's a Walton issue, well, you're going to have the same issue that we were talking about with Malone. I mean, is he, depending on who's brought in, like, is he going to be here this season? Is he for sure going to be gone next season? Like, it's so hard to know without who's coming in, what their vision for this place is. To me, so their track record in drafting. I mean, things like this because if you're getting rid of them, I think you're hoping to get a good young player back, probably as well as, a draft pick or two, depending on if it's this year or next year, or however you do it. But, okay, great, you could get all the draft picks you want, but unless you have someone who actually knows how to utilize those draft picks, you're also just giving away an asset for which could be anything. I mean, at that point, I don't know. And people are saying that this draft, there's a lot of names towards the end of it where from like 20-something, through the end of the draft and everybody's mock is just could go literally anywhere in that. So, I mean, unless you're really sure of somebody, I don't know. I hate making decisions based on one crazy season from top to bottom that it ended up being.
I'd like to, I agree with you. My preference would be the general manager comes in without any oversight from whether it's Joe Dumars or without oversight from anybody, like allow him to run the basketball program. Of course, this is all assuming it's not Joe Dumars.
Right.
Fire Luke Walton, for God's sakes. He's not going to survive this. Like he's not going to be, maybe he's the Sacramento Kings head coach next year, but he's not going to be the Sacramento Kings coach the year after that.
So you're looking at a wasted year.
Right. That's it. And to be fair, full disclosure, I have no problem saying when I was wrong. Maybe my coaching evaluation skills are terrible. I thought Billy Donovan was the problem in Oklahoma City for a number of years. I was clearly dead wrong about that. So maybe I'm dead wrong about Luke Walton's ability to coach. I don't think that I am, but I didn't think I was wrong about Billy Donovan. So there's my little disclosure about how I might be wrong about Luke Walton. But I like the idea of a coach coming in because I absolutely feel there is a great place for Buddy Heild in the NBA, a role that he would love, a role that he would average 20-plus points per game, a role that he would get his shots up, being invited to the All-Star game, win the three-point contest, do all of that stuff, but I think you need the right coach to get it out of him. And right now, I don't believe that coach is Luke Walton. Who is it exactly? I don't know. At least in terms of available coaches, I don't know. Eric Spoelstra would work. I don't think he's available. Nick Nurse would be great. I don't think he's leaving. Like, there are coaches that I think would work. But with all of that said, we've got to go back to our original introduction point when we were talking about the conversation I had with Jason Jones today on ESPN 1320. This is a long play. So if we're talking, Adam Silver acknowledged recently, I don't know if we've spoken since then, the NBA season is probably not going to start December 1st. And I think when this collective or this not collective bargaining agreement, but when this agreement was put into place to do the restart, it was automatically, okay, here's the timeline for free agency. That's already changed. Here's the timeline for the draft. That's already changed. Here's a start date for next season. And immediately it was like, okay, this isn't agreed upon, but we're going to put it out there and it's what we're going to try to work with. And Adam Silver has already said, I don't think that this is going to happen. So it's September 2nd at the time we're recording this. If this is a long play, free agency starts, even with it pushed back in a month and a half, if they pushed it out even further, it's 2 months away. Draft is 2 months away.
If it stays, which
right, if it stays, and it could, there's no. The point I'm trying to make in this really stupid, long-winded way is there's no way that I think all of these events can occur one after the other in terms of the general manager, a potential change in coach, and the deciding what to do with Buddy Heild. Right. I think Buddy Heild is a Sacramento King next year, whether he likes it or not. And I think that Luke Walton is the Sacramento Kings head coach, whether I like it or not. And then the general man, it's a similar situation, I think, to Griff in New Orleans. David Griffin came in. He said, hey, Alvin, you good. Don't worry about it. Like, we got you. I think they even signed him to an extension. Got through the year. You're not going to have to do that with Luke Walton. You signed him to an extension because his contract was running out. Obviously, you're not going to have to do that with Luke. It's a very nice gesture to give a coach. But you ultimately saw what happened. The season came to a conclusion, and Alvin Gentry is done. Alvin Gentry, I'm going to venture to guess, Alvin Gentry signed that contract knowing if we fall short, and I'm talking like first round of the playoffs fall short, if we don't advance past that, my job is probably going to somebody else. Like, there were people in the league who knew Alvin Gentry's contract extension was a token by David Griffin to get him through this season, and that's ultimately what it was. Again, not a situation that pertains to Luke Walton because when he gets fired after next season, he's still going to get paid for 2 more years. But I think Luke Walton winds up being the coach and Buddy Heild winds up sticking around. And whoever that general manager is going to have to figure it out along the way during what is 100%, we know now, going to be some form of abbreviated season. Does that mean 40 games, 50 games, 60 games? What exactly does it mean? December 1st was something that he being Adam Silver, did not sound confident about at all, which leads me to believe, because I always thought started on Christmas. I don't feel like December is the month that Adam Silver is looking at. He might be looking at something at the beginning of January or perhaps even mid-January. And at that point, I think we're talking 50 to 55 games if you really push through it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I don't know how you navigate this if you're the Kings. I think the way you do it is you bring the GM in and you just go, okay, you got some time to evaluate it.
And two, and in the last 2 seasons, we've seen 2 completely different systems and 2 completely different outcomes based on those systems.
Yeah.
When it comes to, how Buddy Heild fits in that. And so to me, depending on who you bring in, but let's say Morey's fired from Houston after this. If you're bringing in a guy like that who his system is shooting 3-pointers, obviously Buddy's going to fit that. I just think on who you bring, and then depending on your head coach and how you then see Buddy fitting into that, I think will go a long way. But again, I don't just make the move because of play. We've seen how that's worked out in the past for us when we give, that much, power to, to what's being said. I mean, the kid just got paid. I know he had an off year and a new coach, and he was used a completely different way. But I also am, I'm not convinced that by bringing somebody in, they wouldn't necessarily be able to connect to him and the players be able to figure it out. And now if you bring someone in and they just want to, scrap everything and sign a bunch of people or draft a bunch of people that's Fox's age, okay, that's an option. But again, I still think he's an asset, and I don't just take, the first deal that's offered or on the table if I don't think I'm getting, adequate compensation back,
sure.
Player-wise or pick-wise, because you have him locked up and it's on a good declining deal. I mean, and a lot of his is incentive-based. So if he doesn't reach up to that, he's hurting himself in that sense. But again, I still think there's plenty of teams out there that would take him, like the Miami Heat or something else, that could fit him into a system and he would be perfectly fine.
You brought up Daryl Morey. There's a Game 7 happening at the time we're recording this. I think with the Rockets this year, I've always been of the mindset that, well, we saw it in Philadelphia. I thought there were 2 teams that were finals or bust. Philadelphia was one. We saw what happened there. Houston is the other. The difference between Houston and Philadelphia is I'm positive Mike D'Antoni is out if he loses tonight's game. I'm positive Mike D'Antoni is out if he does anything but winds up in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
And it appears he very well might wind up in Indiana.
Yep.
But the interesting note of that is the assumption that perhaps Daryl Morey is gone as well. Daryl Morey has, rolled the dice getting Russell Westbrook in a Houston Rockets uniform, just as he rolled the dice to get Chris Paul in a Houston Rockets uniform. And without Mike D'Antoni, I don't know who you can bring in there. He's an analytical guy. He likes to do, certain things. He likes to put out long, extended investigations on referees and different things like that. And it's he's a unique guy, but he's been, to a certain level, successful in Houston. Does that name intrigue you at all as a potential Sacramento Kings general manager?
Yes and no, just because I'm not convinced that he'd be able to recreate the same thing here that he did in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that, as we've seen in the past, the Kings' only options of acquiring talent are in the draft or via trade. And Morey is very good at that. So, kudos to him. He does great at that. So that would fit well in Sacramento, that part. And we've heard that, Vivek likes Hinkie, in the sense that he's that kind of, not your ex-basketball player, but more of the numbers, analytics, kind of style.
Yeah.
And that Vivek, he likes
they're cut
that,
from the same. They're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Daryl Morey and.
Pete was that one, in a similar background, the
Right.
lawyer, the analytics wise, and then Vladi was kind of a, the advisor of the ex, big basketball player role. But otherwise, we've seen him kind of gravitate towards those kind of guys. So I can see, in the sense where that would work, I think they'd have to spend more to get him to come to a place like this. If they'd want to do that, I don't know, because we've heard various reports on that as well. But he's a respected name. If you brought him in, he's a respected guy. People are going to answer the phone for him. Like, you're not going to have to worry about, the biggest problem that we heard with Vladi is that the other general managers respected him for who he was, but they didn't respect him in the position. You wouldn't have that problem with Morey. So, in that sense, I would be fine with it. Oh, there goes the dog.
I guess it's time for us to wrap up. Okay, one more thing though. I had fun with this on the radio. It felt like a Sacramento Kings thing to point this out. Brett Brown is gone. I don't think he's going to coach next year. Brett Brown, next head coach of the Sacramento Kings. What do you think? You want to get on board with this? Huh?
I'd be okay with it.
Come on, Jill. See?
I'd be okay with it.
People said I was crazy. And I'm not saying that's what I'm rooting for. I'm saying I can see that as the type of thing that's happening. I don't know, when we evaluate Luke Walton differently than other people might. We evaluated Dave Yeager differently than other people might. We evaluate the coaches that are here differently than coaches that are out of the market. And, Philly was really hard on Brett Brown. Especially in the recent, last season and a half. They were really, really tough on him. But I've always been of the belief this is a guy that can coach. There's been some big personalities there. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is come through. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, their relationship is what it is. But that was a difficult team.
He was there through it all.
Right.
From the very bottom to this. And he was another guy that dealt with some, significant injuries to their key players. But had the ball bounced a different way last year,
oh my gosh,
I don't think this would even, this wouldn't even be a discussion. But
no, it wouldn't be. They would have been in the finals.
Yeah, he comes from a good background. 100%. I'd rather have him over Luke. But and again, that's me personally. I would rather have Kenny Atkinson or a guy like Brown 100%.
Well, I can't wait for Luke Walton to officially be let go. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, so Jill can drop a 10-part series on the list of coaches that the Sacramento Kings should look at. Before we get out of here, go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code hoopball20. That'll get you 20% off your order and free shipping. Again, go to manscaped.com. They've got the Lawnmower 3.0. It's fantastic. It works great. It's got an LED light. Super smooth, prevents any sort of accidents. Just go to manscaped.com, promo code hoopball20. It'll get you 20% off of your order plus free shipping. I know you're cheating on me with another podcast. You want to plug that before we go?
Yeah, it's Hoops and Wine.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
But before we go, the other name I was going to say was, now that Houston's gone, and who has interviewed for other positions, is the Utah Jazz, Justin Zanuck.
Okay.
his name hasn't been mentioned, but he's another one where he interviewed for the Chicago Bulls. It was a VP role, but he's had that where he's been an agent up to the assistant GM, the GM, but they've kind of, bred him from bottom up there in Utah. But he is looking to, and he's still under, I think it's Dennis Lindsay over there. Like he's still under him in that, because he moved up to VP, and so he took that GM role. So I think he is looking to kind of have his own maybe team. But that's another interesting name that people might want to pay attention to.
The structure of organizations can be fascinating at times because you look and you go, okay, like for example, RC Buford. Isn't Brent Barry technically above him? Isn't he the vice president of basketball?
Title?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And then you go to New York and everybody's talking about the Knicks and Leon Rose, and isn't like Worldwide West like above him? Like with the makeups and dynamic, like it's such a like. All right, everybody, calm down with all of these titles and see what we wind up here. That's what got the Kings in trouble.
And some places have like 2-3 VPs, and and then stuff. So it's like how their VP line down fits and how it crosses, and it is an interesting thing. So. But yeah, those are two guys that were, if Houston ends up losing, that those are two teams that, are out that people thought might have done better. And at least with Justin, you've seen him interview elsewhere. So
people are interested. Yeah.
Worth a call.
Well, we've got basketball to go watch tonight, Jill. It's been fun. Subscribe to the show, rate the show, review the show. Tell Jill how amazing she is. What an incredible addition she is to this podcast. Again, just search us in whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Search Hoops and Wine. Follow on Twitter at Jill Adge, at Damien Barling. We'll be back next Wednesday.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.